Welcome to the deep dive. Tonight we're tackling something pretty fundamental. Is perception ultimately bigger, more powerful than reality itself?
It's a heavy one.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. If everyone, the whole world, believes some awful lie about you, and that lie completely destroyed your life, does your truth, the actual fact of the matter, even matter anymore?
You're right. That hits hard because it suggests your own reality, your truth, can just be erased by what other people think. It makes you question how solid your own identity is if it can be rewritten like that.
Exactly. Your truth just vanishes because the perception took over. Their fiction becomes your fact.
Yeah.
It's deeply unsettling. And it kind of throws us into that old philosophical space,
Hmm.
like Plato's cave or the
Okay. A
Matrix.
simulation idea.
Yeah. Imagine you're living in a simulation. It's perfect. You can't tell the difference. You're happy, totally content. Would you really want someone to show you it's fake?
Or is that blissful feeling, that perfect perception, actually your ultimate truth in that moment? Because if it feels more rewarding, more real than the supposed truth underneath,
Which one do you choose? Which one becomes your reality?
it's dizzying. You know, I was in a relationship once, looking back, it was clearly toxic, unhealthy.
Okay.
But at the time, my perception painted it as this incredibly passionate, intense love affair. That perception was like a shield, right? Deflecting the reality I just wasn't ready for.
That makes sense. It's a kind of defense mechanism, perception protecting you from a painful truth.
Totally. But when that shield finally cracked, wow, reality hitting was devastating.
And that kind of self-deception, it's incredibly human, isn't it? We all kind of narrate our lives.
We do. We're storytellers. Sometimes we use brighter colors than reality offers. But what happens when the paint fades? And it leads to this weird contradiction today. We're all shouting about authenticity.
Right. Be real, be authentic. But then we spend hours curating our online profiles, filtering everything. So are we really seeking truth or just a version that looks better? Which one gets more energy, the online you or the real you?
That's the core issue with our digital lives, isn't it? We build these polished versions, these avatars, and you have to ask, where's the real investment? The facade or the self? What's the long-term cost?
Exactly. Your online self versus your actual self. Be honest, which one gets more attention? Now layer on top of that deepfakes that look real, AI news feeding our biases, echo chambers.
It feels less like reality is just under attack and more like it's, well, like you said, a hostage situation.
Yeah. And perception is holding all the cards. It's manipulating our gut reactions. Think about it. An algorithm feeds you something, a headline, a video,
It hits you right in the gut. Fear, anger, whatever.
instantly before you can even process if it's true. And that's happening everywhere. Bengaluru, London, New York. It's designed to bypass truth, which makes you wonder, what if reality is just like a consensus, a story we all agree on?
And what happens when that consensus breaks down? Which, arguably, it is.
Right. It shatters into millions of little private reality bubbles, each one unshakable, fed by its own specific information stream. We see it in politics, in social divides.
These competing realities, fueled by perception so strong, they just repel any facts that contradict them.
It reminds me of something quite dark, actually. Someone I knew went through intense gaslighting. Their reality was so manipulated, they started doubting their own memory, their sanity.
That's terrifying. The tormentor's perception literally became their prison.
Exactly. Their own lived experience became irrelevant. The imposed story, the twisted perception took over completely. It's a kind of violence, really.
It absolutely is a violation of someone's core being. When someone else's warped story about you drowns out your own truth.
It forces you to look at your own foundations. So let's get a bit Socratic here. Think about your strongest beliefs, the ones you'd go to the mat for. Are they built on solid, checkable facts? Or are they maybe rooted more in perceptions, interpretations that just happen to confirm what you want to be true, that confirmation bias thing?
That satisfying click you get when something fits your existing view. It feels like truth, but is it? Or is it just an echo?
Exactly. Is it truth resonating or just your own biases bouncing back? Now, flip that old saying. Seeing is believing.
Okay, what if it's believing is seeing?
Right. What if what you expect to see, what you need to see to feel okay, is all your brain actually lets you perceive? Because our brains aren't just recording things passively.
No, they're filtering, interpreting, predicting.
Yeah.
Constantly. They're active constructors of reality, not just mirrors. And sometimes they distort things to fit the model they already have.
So with all that going on, what are you really seeing? It makes you think about history, like the witch trial.
Mass hysteria, yeah.
Yeah.
entire communities perceiving evil where objectively there was none. But the perception was so real, so powerful.
It had deadly consequences. Has that flaw in us really gone away? Or has it just migrated online?
You could argue that some online forums or social media dynamics show similar patterns: fear, contagion, scapegoating based on perception.
Chillingly familiar. So take a second. What's one truth about yourself you really cling to? Something central to who you are.
Okay, got one.
Now, gently. Question it. Is it bedrock? Or is it maybe a story you've told yourself and others? So often it just feels solid, built from little bricks of perception and validation.
That's uncomfortable, questioning core self-beliefs, but necessary maybe, to see if they're constructed.
Yeah. Now flip it. Think about how you judge others. A quick glance, a single post, a brief interaction.
And boom, we create a whole narrative for them.
Instantly, we cast them in our mental movie. How often do you think you nail it? And to be honest, how much do you care if you're wrong?
Oof, that's a tough one. We're quick to judge, maybe less quick to reconsider. We're all casting directors, assigning roles based on snippets.
Okay, darker hypothetical. Imagine a pill, take it, and everyone instantly sees you as brilliant, successful, loved, everyone. But you know it's a lie. Would you take it?
Wow. Guaranteed positive perception versus knowing it's fake. That cuts right to the core of what we value, the external image or the internal reality.
What would you trade for that guaranteed perception? Your integrity, your actual messy life. It makes you realize entire industries exist just for this.
Yeah.
Marketing, branding, political spin.
Their whole purpose is manufacturing perception. It's not always about the best product or policy, but the best story about it.
So are we living with real things or with brilliantly sold ideas about them, carefully crafted perceptions?
It certainly feels like the narrative, the image, often carries more weight than the substance these days.
The sizzle, not the steak. We buy into it all the time. It makes you question truth itself. Like your boss's perception of your work, is that the reality? Your partner's perception of your love, the internet's perception of some celebrity, whose lens defines reality.
There isn't one single lens, is there? It's fragmented. Contextual. Depends who's looking, what they bring to it. The idea of one objective truth starts to wobble.
So many competing realities. Which one wins? The one with the evidence or the one with the power? Personally, I want objective truth. I crave it.
Good.
But I'm human. A great story, a charismatic speaker. Sometimes that sways me, even when my logical brain is waving a red flag. It's complicated.
Yeah. That's the human condition, isn't it? We're not purely rational. Emotion, narrative, they're incredibly powerful forces in shaping what we perceive as real.
Exactly. A friend in advertising once said, "We don't sell products. We sell the perception of a better life. The product is just the souvenir."
That's chillingly accurate. It echoes Baudrillard, the sign, the image, becoming more real than the thing itself. We buy the feeling, the identity associated with the product.
Think about your last big purchase. Was it the object or the feeling, the status, the identity it promised? Now, here's an unpopular truth maybe. People often don't want the truth.
They want the perception that comforts them,
Yes.
validates them.
Yes, and they'll fight tooth and nail for that perception even when reality is staring them in the face. A harsh truth versus a comforting lie. The lie often wins the popularity contest.
Which leads to things like reputation management.
Exactly. It's not about being good anymore. It's about appearing good, even if you have to bulldoze reality to build that shiny facade. In this attention economy, perception is the real currency. Truth. Often a bad investment.
So how much of the authentic self we project is actually a performance, carefully edited for likes, for approval?
We're all on stage, aren't we? Who's the audience? Who wrote the script? Remember the dress, gold and white or blue and black?
Oh yeah, that broke the internet. Millions saw the same thing completely differently.
If we can't agree on colors, what about complex things like motivations, character, politics? What if your perception of others is just you, your fears, your insecurities, projected outwards?
That idea of the world as a mirror, it's powerful. We might be reacting to our own internal landscape, thinking it's external reality.
And here's the kicker. You probably think you're objective. Most of us do. What if that belief is the biggest perception trick your ego plays on you?
The bias blind spot. We see bias in others, but assume we're impartial. Recognizing our own subjectivity is the hard part.
We're all biased. The only question is how. How do your biases shape your reality? Think about propaganda. Historically, it was about shaping perception until one version became dominant.
And we might think we're too savvy for it now.
But it's evolved. It's personalized, algorithmic, woven into our feeds. Much more subtle, maybe more effective. Now here's a real mind bender. What if there is no objective reality separate from perception?
What if reality is just perception?
Yeah. If that's true, then power belongs to whoever crafts the most compelling perception. Is that terrifying or liberating?
Both, maybe. It grants immense power to narrative, but also potentially removes the solid ground beneath our feet.
So it's not perception versus reality, but perception as reality. Wild. And what if everything you hold as true isn't something you discovered, but something you inherited? Perceptions passed down through culture, family, school.
That invisible lens we all look through, shaped by our upbringing. We rarely examine the lens itself.
So, after all this, you still think your perception is the accurate one, the default, the normal one.
That quiet assumption that my way of seeing is the right way. That's where so much trouble starts, isn't it?
Short pause. Yeah, that quiet assumption. And that leads to maybe the key takeaway. The most dangerous prison isn't made of bars. It's the one you don't know you're in. The prison of your own unquestioned perceptions.
If you never question the lens, you'll always mistake its distortions for the world itself.
So, back to that first question. The lie everyone believes, the one that wrecks your life. If their perception becomes your reality, what's your private truth worth then? Can reality even exist socially if no one else perceives it?
It highlights how interconnected our realities are. A purely private truth, when the shared perception is overwhelmingly contradictory and has real-world consequences. Well, it feels incredibly isolating and, in a social sense, maybe powerless.
If this deep dive made you think, maybe bent your reality a bit, share it, especially with someone who seems absolutely certain they've got it all figured out. Sparking questions is where change begins.
Absolutely. Challenging our own and others' perceptions. That's how we grow. It fosters that crucial intellectual humility.
What if your whole sense of you is just a collection of perceptions, yours, other people's, all stitched together? Pull one thread, does it unravel? How much of you survives if everyone suddenly sees you differently?
It really points to the social construction of identity. Our self-concept isn't formed in a vacuum. It's constantly negotiated and reflected back by others. A major shift in perception could trigger a real identity crisis.
So, which is tougher to live with? A harsh reality that everyone sees and acknowledges? Or a comfortable lie, a fake truth that you have to constantly maintain, constantly perform?
Both sound exhausting in their own way. One demands resilience against painful truth. The other demands constant vigilance against exposure. The psychological toll of either could be immense.
It feels like we're living in the age of the influencer, right? The perceived lifestyle, the curated happiness, that's the product. The messy reality behind the scenes, nobody wants to see that.
The lines are definitely blurring between authentic experience and performance. It's easy to feel like you're comparing your behind-the-scenes struggles to everyone else's highlight reel.
Picture this. Two people witness the exact same car crash. One sees a tragic accident, the other sees insurance fraud. Same event, totally different perceptions, leading to totally different actions. Who's right? Who holds the truth?
It shows perception isn't passive reception. It's an active interpretation, shaped by our biases, our experiences, our assumptions. We're constantly making meaning, not just observing facts.
Try this. List 3 facts about a political group you disagree with. Now, honestly, trace them back. How many come from direct experience versus narratives you've absorbed from sources you already trust?
That's a vital exercise in media literacy. Understanding the source and potential motive behind the perceptions we absorb is crucial for critical thinking.
But here's a warning, too. Don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out. Accepting totally contradictory perceptions as equally valid, that can lead to paralysis, an inability to discern anything.
Right. There's a difference between considering different perspectives and abandoning critical evaluation altogether.
Yeah.
We still need to weigh evidence and coherence.
Remember that psychology experiment. Show people the same footage. Label it a riot for one group, a demonstration for another. Their perceptions change dramatically.
The framing effect. Words have power. Labels shape how we see. How many labels are silently shaping your world right now?
And what's the cost to society when perception trumps reality? Think about trust, about policy based on populism instead of data, about, well, the post-truth world we hear about, elections, public health, climate change.
The consequences are huge. Eroded trust, flawed decisions, polarization. It impacts everything when shared reality fractures because perception takes precedence.
And if you think you're immune to manipulation, to advertising, to political messaging, that's exactly what they want you to think. Your perceived immunity, that's their best weapon against you.
Believing we're above influence makes us more susceptible, ironically. The illusion of objectivities is a powerful vulnerability.
And you don't need some grand conspiracy for reality to get distorted. Just enough people clinging to comforting perceptions, feeding each other in echo chambers.
Built by confirmation bias, yeah.
Yeah.
We seek out what confirms our views, reinforcing the bubble, making alternative views seem alien or wrong.
So ask yourself, who benefits when your perception of the world is fearful, or angry, or hopeless? Follow the emotional trail. Often, someone profits from the reality you perceive.
That's a powerful question. Our emotions are often manipulated to serve specific agendas, whether political or commercial.
I've had moments realizing my own logical conclusions were really just elaborate justifications for feelings I already had, rationalizations for gut perceptions.
That kind of self-awareness is key, recognizing the interplay between emotion and reason, seeing how feelings can drive the narrative we tell ourselves.
It brings to mind that Inez and Nin quote, "We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are."
Exactly. Is that as we are, just our collection of ingrained perceptions, constantly repainting the world in our own image. Do we ever truly see beyond ourselves?
Think about this. Is there a wrong perception someone close to you holds about you that you've just let slide, never corrected? Why? What does that silence protect? What does it cost?
Those unspoken discrepancies. They can create distance, even if subtly. Avoiding conflict might seem easier, but the cost can be genuine understanding.
Or remember that feeling, that sickening lurch, when you realize a memory you were sure about is actually wrong? How your perceived past can just crumble.
It underscores the fallibility of memory itself, which is essentially our perceived past. It's not a perfect recording. It's a reconstruction.
So maybe there's no objective view from nowhere. Maybe every perception is a perspective, a lens, and the goal isn't to achieve lenslessness, which might be impossible.
But to understand our own lens,
Yeah,
and perhaps try to understand the lenses of others.
maybe. And what if we're not just observers, but active co-creators of reality through our perceptions? That's a heavy responsibility, right? What kind of world are you building with your perceptions?
It shifts the focus from passively receiving reality to actively participating in its construction, which is, yeah, a profound responsibility.
Quick identity challenge. Would you rather live in a world where everyone perceives you as kind, but, deep down you're cruel? Or the reverse, everyone thinks you're cruel, but you know you're kind? Which hell is worse?
Wow. External perception versus internal knowledge of self. That forces a real reckoning with what matters more, social standing or self-integrity. There's no easy answer there.
And maybe some shame realism is needed. You can't really demand others see your true self if you're not willing to genuinely examine your own perceptions of them.
It has to be reciprocal. Empathy requires trying to see through others' eyes, which means questioning our own assumptions about them first.
Okay, final hypothetical. AI creates a perfect, personalized utopia just for you. Flawless, blissful. Do you plug in permanently, abandoning this messy, shared, flawed reality?
The ultimate escape. It tests our connection to shared struggle, to collective reality, even with all its imperfections. Would we trade connection for perfect, solitary perception?
One last thought. Perception isn't just how you see the world, it's the blueprint for how you act in it, how you try to change it.
It dictates our responses, our choices, our impact. Perception drives behavior.
Think back. How many conflicts in your life were fundamentally about clashing perceptions, different assumptions, not necessarily objective facts?
Probably most of them, if we're honest. Misunderstandings rooted in different interpretations of the same event or words.
Maybe the closest we get to reality isn't finding one perfect view, but letting multiple, even contradictory perceptions coexist, letting them illuminate each other's blind spots.
That suggests truth isn't a single point, but may be found in the dialogue between different perspectives, a more complex, nuanced understanding.
I'll confess, I've built whole realities around fears, only to confront the actual situation and realize the perception, the fear itself was the monster. The reality was manageable.
That's a common and powerful experience. Our minds can conjure fears far worse than the reality we eventually face. Perception can be its own antagonist.
Maybe we're all just stumbling around in the dark, bumping into each other's perceptions. A clumsy, sometimes painful dance towards figuring things out together.
A good metaphor for the human condition. Imperfect, striving for connection and understanding despite our subjective lenses.
So let's revisit that first question one last time. Perception versus reality. Maybe the question isn't which is bigger, but which one has more power over your life, your choices, your happiness.
Because ultimately, it's the perceived reality that we experience, that we react to, that shapes our world day to day.
So here's the final mic drop. Reality is what is. Perception is what you make of it.
And what you make of it ultimately makes you.
Choose your interpretations wisely. You're the architect of your own soul. Pause. If this deep dive got you thinking, maybe listen again. Sometimes layers reveal themselves on a second pass.
New connections, deeper understanding of your own perceptual habits.
And if it shattered some certainties, maybe share it with someone stuck in a negative perception loop. Sometimes a different lens is all it takes to start seeing things differently.
Because these conversations matter. Questioning matters.
This is the deep dive. We don't give you reality. We don't give you perceptions. We just rattle the cage of the ones you already have.
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deeper